What's a negative fact about marijuana we should know? It affects your memory, as well as your memory. Less is more. When you find that's no longer true, it's time for a break. George Carlin once gave an interview where he said, marijuana is a drug that engenders its own disuse. He explained that, after a certain amount of time, the expansive, creative element of being high goes away and all that's left is the loopy, dull-witted effect. I've found this to be very true for myself. In my teens and 20s, getting stoned had this golden feel where it felt like I was thinking on a different level and the world felt more vibrant. After my mid to late 20s, that golden feeling became rare. By the time I entered my 30s, it was gone. A permanent part of the past. Nowadays, on the rare occasion when I get stoned, it's just a different form of intoxication. It's like a different flavor of being drunk, for lack of a better description. I'm not sure if this is the case for all people, or just for some. At the very least, it seems like the dull, sorta drunk vibe is good enough for a lot of people to keep going with it. For me, it isn't. Your mileage might vary, but it's important to know that the way weed makes you feel might someday change. Edit, this post seems to have resonated a lot with people. It's also neat to see that there's some variance with how people have or have not experienced this phenomenon. I feel like this is an area of marijuana usage that should be studied more. Right now, there's really only anecdotal information to go on. In response to some comments, here's what I've noticed for my own usage. 1. It's really not a matter of tolerance. While taking a break from usage will make it easier to get stoned quickly, it's still the same stoned feeling that lacks the golden vibe of earlier years. 2. I don't know if this something that has more to do with age or with time spent using. It might be something that involves the developing brain and its elasticity in adolescence versus a fully developed adult brain being more rigid. It might be that the golden time is there whenever one begins usage, but is a limited quantity that runs out over time. This is definitely the factor most in need of study. 3. So far as I've seen, strains don't make a difference. Some kinds of weed get me more stoned than others, but I haven't encountered any that have the same golden vibe from before. Next time I'm back home in Oregon, I'll give some different styles a try and see if there's any difference. Thanks to everyone for sharing their experiences. My friend used to smoke heavy at some point of his life. A few years later he stopped. He said it scared him when he came to a realization that he can barely remember any events or stuff we did together in the past few years. Weed causes burnout in some people. People who are really into it can sometimes be really boring because they won't talk about anything else. Panic attacks. For me, and I guess many others, weed accentuates and magnifies any feelings I have prior or during the high. If I'm happy, weed makes me laugh till I cry happy. If I'm horny, weed makes me crazy horny. If I'm feeling depressed or anxious, much more sad anxious, to the point of inducing panic attacks. I have absolutely no history of panic attacks, and have only ever had them while very stoned and feeling low. It's a fluffing horrible feeling though. Short of breath, become paranoid about breathing, heart rate skyrockets, sweat comes on, convince myself I could potentially have a heart attack at any moment. It spirals until I almost convince myself I'm about to die. 2 hours of manic terror, then slowly I get my senses back and think, why the fluff do I put myself through that willingly? Sometimes weed can be good for thinking outside the box and gives me clarity on things I must do to improve as a person, other times it can scare the living garbage out of me. I guess it all depends on your state of mind. I also find when smoking in a social setting surrounded by people I like, that I never experience panic attacks. Must be related to state of mind, in that you are enjoying yourself in friends' company. Cannabis affects everyone differently. One person could get major anxiety relief from medicating, while another person could have an anxiety attack with the same herb. I've seen too many people try and label it a miracle drug that's the answer to all our prayers. Don't get me wrong, it's fantastic how far we've come, but stop sugar-coating it. It crosses the placenta. A lot of misinformed women don't realize this and self-medicate with weed against pregnancy pains. Edit, I am in dental school. Here are the risks I learned in embryology where I was told to advise against it. I'm just trying to inform people and I'm not here to argue or judge. 1. Decreased fetal oxygen and increased carbon dioxide levels. 2. Increased risk of miscarriage and low birth weight. 3. Increased risk of future learning, behavioral delays. 4. Potential fetal withdrawal symptoms. 5. It is counter-indicated by the American Pediatric Society. Cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. I was a daily user for 30 years and developed it after heavy consumption during illness. I am thankful this got some attention. I live in a city known for its cannabis use and was very open about my usage with healthcare professionals, and it still took a dozen trips to the ER over the course of a year before I was properly diagnosed. I've had a comical number of serious health problems over last 4 years, but CHS was the thing that finally broke me. The link really doesn't highlight how distressing the symptoms can be. I would be sweating so profusely that my jeans and hoodie would be entirely soaked through. Then there's the scratching, a combination of screaming and retching, accompanied by seizures and extreme anxiety. At one point I was begging the doctor to kill me. I'm a brain tumor survivor. I've had one continuous headache for 4 years. I could go on, but it was CHS that brought to that point. I hope this post helps others get diagnosed so they can experience some relief. Edit: if you are experiencing these symptoms, see your doctor to get a proper diagnosis and to increase awareness in the medical community. There's a lot of posts claiming CHS is caused by pesticides, in particular neem oil. Any links to peer-reviewed studies would be appreciated. Edit: neem oil does not cause CHS. It's dangerous for dogs. Keep your stash well away from your pets. A certain subsect of marijuana smokers will let it consume their life even if it's not chemically addictive. This can be wildly destructive. Like anything, consume in moderation. Edit: I know that marijuana can lead to an addiction by way of dopamine release, same as with literally everything else. I included that clause because people have started night-long arguments with me over that garbage, and I didn't feel like arguing with stoners through my entire shift. Edit 2. It was suggested that I mention leaves. They literally tackle this exact problem by helping people combat addiction, dependency, whatever you want to call it. No one told or warned me about the panic attacks. Haven't smoked for 8 years due to one severe attack I had. I was an everyday smoker for the better part of 3 years. I had to quit cause it was fluffing with my head, making me all paranoid. I've been sober 5 months now and holy garbage. The dreams I have are incredible. I would never remember my dreams when I was smoking, even if I'd go for a little tea break every now and then. But now, my dreams are insanely vivid. I often have lucid dreams and OBS now. I look forward to sleeping because of this, whereas I used to just pass out. Also, during the first month or 2 of quitting, memories would just flood back to me. Long-lost memories from years and years ago, some good, some bad, but it was scary to see just how much I had forgotten due to being high all the time. Weed is a beautiful thing. It absolutely has its time and place, and under those circumstances it can be amazing. But when you smoke every day, it loses its magic, and so do you. It dulls you down, makes you content with doing nothing. I believe that anyone who says otherwise is in denial. But hey, this is all from my personal experience, so I could be completely wrong. The smell to non-smokers is very prevalent. You're still inhaling smoke into your lungs, which is harmful. Edit: yes, I'm aware that there are other ways to use weed. The fact remains that if you smoke it, which is the most widespread method of consumption, it's bad for your lungs. Counselor here with a note on drug use in general. It's always important to ask ourselves why we were doing what we're doing. A lot of people smoke for their anxiety or to relieve stress, but getting high only helps you in that single moment. It would be even more beneficial to figure out what is creating your anxiety and how to solve that problem itself. I'm not trying to say that no one should smoke or so drugs, but they should very much be a once-in-a-while thing. If it's getting close to being a daily habit, it's probably time to look at why you're using so much. People want to claim it's not addictive. While that may be true on a biochemical level, I'll be darned if I don't know a bunch of people that act identical to addicts when it comes to pot. Edit: missed a word. If you smoke regularly, you're still kinda spacey even when you're sober. I'm a stoner, but I've gone on a few extended breaks because of it. I don't know any sources for my claim except for experience. So maybe it's just me, but I doubt that. But as a stoner, I appreciate this thread. I get high every day, and it's good to keep these things in mind. Long-term use followed by quitting cold turkey can trigger depression, as cannabis causes a dopamine release when it's introduced to the brain. It's a similar effect to alcohol, but less extreme. Edit, if you're struggling with withdrawals, or considering dramatically reducing, quitting, here are a few studies on what you're dealing with, and how to treat it. There are thousands of articles out there with advice on how to get over the withdrawal period. It sucks pretty feeling bad in the beginning, speaking from experience, but rest assured there are many ways to reduce symptoms and speed up your recovery. Put in the effort. Seriously. It's worth it, and most importantly, you're worth it.